Hello, BookTube, and welcome back to March Mystery Madness, an epic BookTube event celebrating murder mysteries, one I look forward to every year. I don't look forward to it to the extent that I segregate my reading, because I cannot do without murder mysteries all year long. I love them so much. But in March, I get an extra helping, an extra intense concentration of murder mysteries. And since March Mystery Madness is in its 9th year, one of our prompts, if you want to follow prompts, is to read the 9th book in a series. Most murder mystery authors, if they hit it big with the readership, or even hit it medium with readership, will bring back favorite characters because writers are desperate for money and they like to be loved. So if the minute somebody expresses any kind of approval for what they do, they just keep doing that thing over and over again. Most authors in the past who've written murder mysteries in series have got to number 9 and then well past it. So I decided for myself, for March Mystery Madness, that I would read only 9 all along the line. I would read number 9 in a series for as many series as I can and talk about them, at least 30 of them, on camera with you. And I was casting around yesterday, in yesterday's video, I was casting around for what I would read last night. I'm adding a murder mystery to every night's reading. I don't foresee a problem doing this unless perhaps next week I am going to bed a little tipsy, in which case probably there won't be much night's reading, or unless the night's reading is particularly demanding and time-consuming. That hasn't happened yet. It would have to be both demanding and time-consuming. It has to be a big, complex book. Complex alone would still leave me time to read something else, and a desire to cleanse the palate and read something else. That happened when I read a book called Tudor Networks of Power, which is extremely dense, but not very long. And I have not encountered yet this year a book that is extremely dense and extremely long. That has not yet happened. I'm sure that it will. The year is still comparatively young. But yesterday in my March Mystery Madness video, I was musing about what I would read last night. Would I read a series I'm familiar with? Would I read a number 9 that I'm familiar with? Or would I read something brand new to me? Something where I might have read 1 or 2 things in the series, but not the whole series, and maybe not number 9. And one of you made a suggestion. And it worked just right. So, some book suggestions, they just come to you at the exact right time. It's not like you didn't know the book was out there. It just, the suggestion comes at exactly the right time. One of you suggested The Siberian Dilemma by Martin Cruz Smith. This is an adventure of his dogged Russian inspector, Arkady Renko, who was introduced to the whole world and became incredibly famous with Gorky Park, which is a slam-bang novel. It just is, it doesn't put a foot wrong, and was made into a very, very good movie with the late, great William Hurt. I read this when it came out. I think we saw the advanced copy, the galley, on this channel, and then the finished copy, and then I read it and loved it, and put it on my year-end list, and thought no more about it. It's in that weird twilight zone that new releases can be in, where they're no longer new, but what's going to be done with them? Is anything going to be done with them? No, probably not. They're not new anymore, and that was their one claim. So if nothing's going to be done with them, then maybe you could see down the line some reprint house might decide to reprint all the Arkady Renko novels once the series is over. As a euphemistic way of putting it, once the series is over. In other words, once the author has popped his clogs, then somebody might decide to, Folio Society or Heritage Press or something like that, might decide to do all the Arkady Renko novels. Or maybe somewhere down the line, equally far down the line, some publishing house might think, well, what if we reprint all of them in uniform trade paperbacks or something like that? But otherwise, no. Right? This is the weird gap that so many contemporary books fall into. The Siberian Dilemma, Martin Cruz Smith is never going to be taught at schools. He's never going to be part of any curricula. So that new release is really his moment in the sun. And after that, the books just go away. And he's writing more of them, so you get more. And everybody else is writing more books, you get more of those. If you're a critic like me, you're going to forget about these things. You'll remember that you like them, but they won't be an active part of your library anymore. It would, for instance, never occur to me to keep the hardcovers of these books. It's not like I have, 2 whole shelves devoted to Donna Leon hardcovers. I get them, and I love them, but I don't keep them. I don't know what that would make an author feel. But this book definitely fell into that gap. The minute someone suggested it, I thought, oh, that is exactly right. This is exactly what I want. I will reread Siberian Dilemma. So thank you, whichever imaginary booktube friend made that suggestion. It hit at exactly the right moment. And I loved it. I loved the book even more than I did the last time I read it. I read it a couple of years ago and loved it. But I found a lot more in it, which actually made me a little bit sad that probably nothing will be done with this book. That probably nothing will be done with any of this author's books. And he's not alone, right? Nothing will ever be done with Ian Rankin's books, for instance. We saw Elizabeth Peters' Amelia Peabody books. Maybe they'll get a uniform trade paperback reprint somewhere down the line to minuscule sales. But nothing will ever happen with those books. They had their moment in the sun. They were meant to be read and enjoyed, maybe stored with all their others. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the sense of injustice here is. Maybe the sense of injustice is enhanced by having just spent time with Arkady Renko, who is an extreme sad sack. He's an extreme sourpuss. He never catches a break. Martin Cruismith never lets him up off the mat. Something is always wrong. In this book, he's already been wounded. He's one of the walking wounded. But he's still on the job as a dogged police officer, a police investigator in modern Russia, where, much like the Bernie Gertler novels, he just feels like he's the last. He never actually puts it this way, as far as I know, but he must. We are certainly given as readers to believe that he could probably see himself as the last just man in an unjust world. A world surrounded by drunken, lazy cops and kleptocratic politicians. And then him. And every once in a while, in the course of his books, he encounters a kindred soul of one kind or another. Someone that he can like or even love. And in a recent novel in the series before this one, he meets such a person, Tatiana Petrovna, who's a journalist. A fairly enterprising journalist in a country that doesn't really encourage that. And this book opens with her missing and incommunicado in Siberia. And Renko is worried about this. He's maybe a little more worried. At the beginning of the book, we get the impression he's probably a little more worried than he should be. They've been on again, off again lovers in the indifferent, mopey kind of way that he appears to do everything. even passionate love affairs are indifferent and mopey on his part. But he gets the impression, he is pretty much told from a bunch of people, that you're worrying too much. She goes missing all the time. It's part of the job. She'll be back. She can handle herself. But he doesn't really trust it. But he goes about his job, including the incident that starts the book and sets a tone that runs throughout the book. 2 drunken bears have escaped from the zoo and are on the loose in Moscow. And he has to partner up with his loutish, indifferent partner who doesn't care about this at all and thinks it's funny in a darkly comic kind of way, but nothing more than that. And an anthropologist, a primate anthropologist who's nevertheless been called in as a kind of general animal specialist with a tranquilizer rifle to tranquilize these animals before maybe they take it into their head to kill someone. And it's a wonderful opening scene. It immediately acquaints you with Renko's incredibly dry sense of humor, his incredibly gray slate view of the world, and also his competence. Because when the female bear wanders off in a drunken stupor, the male bear looks like maybe it wants to take an aggressive interest in the cops and the anthropologist who are watching it from a distance, with the anthropologist with her dart gun shouldered and ready. And as the bear gets closer and closer, she tries to fire, and it keeps misfiring, and her nerve, we get the sense, is failing her. She hands the rifle to Renko, and he pulls off one perfect shot. Because he might be a sourpuss, but he is capable. Even wounded, even diminished in capacity, he is capable. He is a very good example of Raymond Chandler's, down these mean streets a man must walk, who is not himself mean. He's a really good example of that. I would be willing to bet, I don't know anything about Martin Cruismith, but I'd be willing to bet that he consciously patterned Renko with that essay in mind. What police or noir or procedural author doesn't memorize that essay? I don't know of one who doesn't. The bears at the beginning of the book recur throughout the book, and that makes me think that maybe the person who suggested this to me had a little mischievous twinkle in their eye when they did so. Because I had forgotten just how ubiquitous giant killer bears are in this book. I'd forgotten that fact. And I was gruesomely reminded of it. Because Renko can't let his worry go out of his mind. He can't just take what everyone's telling him and say, yeah, I'm probably worrying too much. But he can't just hare off to Siberia when his boss, a wonderful, sleazy, hateable character, who's nevertheless trying in his own way to just make it in this gray landscape of moral relativity and depravity. He's wonderfully portrayed, is what I'm saying. Every character in here is wonderfully portrayed, I think. When his boss gives him a mission to hunt down some fugitive criminal who is close to Siberia, Renko jumps at the chance. He figures if he get close enough, he can wrap up that case and figure out where Tatiana is. So off he packs. Off he goes to Siberia. He meets a wonderful character that I don't think this character, I don't know if this character recurs. I don't know how many books there are after Siberian Dilemma. Also, just a side note, in case Martin Cruz Smith is listening, my services to come up with a title for your book are available 24 hours a day for free. The Siberian Dilemma is not the title of a book. Okay, it's the very bad title of a white paper. But he meets a character named Bolot, who actually he's a member of native Siberian people. He's short and squat and swarthy, and he has a business card. He's actually looking to make it in the world. His business card actually says Rinshin Bolot, factotum. Because he will do anything for you. He has lots and lots of skills, and they're at your disposal. So he's not going to specify. And he also has lots and lots of glossy brochures from an oil magnate who's made it big and is hoping to make it bigger. And this guy would like an introduction to him, maybe to get on his good graces, maybe to make it. Everyone around Renko is trying to make it. They're all trying for some sort of big financial kleptocratic breakthrough of some kind. They all want that, except him. He doesn't want that. All he really wants short term now is to find out whether or not Tatiana is okay. And in the course of the novel, he finds out that she is okay and that she is kind of sort of on assignment. She's kind of sort of following a story, but it's a little bit vague as to whether or not she's following a story or joining a cause. It's not really clear. And it's not because Martin Cruz Smith couldn't make it clear. It's because he wants it to be ambiguous. She has latched on to a zealous, very charismatic Russian reformer, also another oil magnate called Mikhail Kuznetsov. And Kuznetsov has the big, valorous, charismatic presence, the airbrush good looks, and a solid financial base. A really solid financial base. And he is letting all of those things, plus an incredible ability to wow audiences. He has public charisma that is working on Tatiana, even though she denies it. It's working on her. It doesn't work on Renko. That could never work. Not even if Kuznetsov were a perfectly genuine article. It still wouldn't work on Renko. Nothing does. Nothing works on him. That's why we love him so much. He has all of those qualities, and that starts to make him maybe think about taking on the very worst job description anywhere in modern Russia. Opponent to Vladimir Putin. He starts to toy with that idea. And we follow Renko's adventures as he gets to know this man, as he on again, off again talks with Tatiana. And we get introduced not only to Bolot, but to a whole bunch of other local characters, some of whom are absolutely fascinating. I have been to this area. I've been all over Siberia, but the area that we eventually concentrate on after a while, including an event that I will describe in a minute, is Lake Baikal, which is enormous, a gigantic lake in Siberia that I haven't been foolish enough to go out on it. Although I've been to Lake Baikal once in winter and twice in the very brief window of summer where it's not frozen over. When the lake freezes over, it freezes over to 4 or 5 feet of ice that's as hard as tempered steel, so you can drive a truck over it. without wearing at all. It becomes just a parking lot, a place where you don't have to worry about it at all. You don't have to worry about driving on it at all. And I was assured of that many, many times, but I am not going to get in a heavy armored vehicle or truck or car of any kind and drive out onto a frozen lake. Thank you very much. I'm not going to do that. I did go so far as to do what one time that I was there, my host said, well, all right, if you're being, let's just say, a chicken. They used a word that was a native word that didn't mean that quite, but we don't have to descend that far. The least you could do, they said, there's a promontory here of land. You can scooch out on your stomach. It's an amazing thing to lay flat on ice. Lake Baikal is extremely clear in winter when there's no plankton blooming, when there's no nothing like that blooming. It's extremely clear, like glass. You wouldn't know that you were looking through water. It's totally motionless. When it's frozen over, it's totally motionless. My host one time said, we're right here. If anything goes wrong, you'll be 10 feet away. And the ice is not going to give way. You should slide out on your belly and just lay and look down through the ice at the water down below. You might even see a fish. And I did that. My heart pounding the whole time. And it was amazing. It was an amazing sight to lay there like that and look at the depth is deceptive. The thickness of the ice is deceptive. And it's all crystal clear. It's an amazing ecosystem of its own. Just incredible. And that is where a lot of this action takes place. Once we get past the event in this novel that I am sure the person who suggested it had in mind. You people know me so well. You know my triggers so well that instead of warning me, giving me trigger warnings like in the 21st century full of snowflakes you're supposed to do, you walk me right into them just to see me respond. And yep, sure enough, Arkady Renko is invited on a bear hunt and is attacked by a bear. It's seen before the climactic conclusion of this novel, which that scene is amazing. It's amazingly well done, you little so-and-so. It's amazingly well done. I remembered it. I remembered all of this from the first time that I read this. I loved it. I did it. I was not able to successfully interest my editor at the time at a full-length review of this book. So I don't know that I've ever given Martin Cruz Smith a full-length review of a book. I'd have to check and see, but I don't think I ever have. So I just had a brief paragraph to do for a year-end roundup of the best mystery series of the year. So it was wonderful to go back in this in great detail and see all the stuff that Martin Cruz Smith was doing in this novel, the 9th in a series, that, not to beat a dead horse here, Ed McBain absolutely did not do in the 9th 87th Precinct novel that I read. He absolutely does not do any of the stuff that's in this. And I don't mean just ground me enough on the different characters. I mean that snap of really good prose, of an author who's not underestimating the value of your attention at all. That snap is all through this book. Oh my, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I loved revisiting it. The orchestration of the bear hunt scene, amazing on its own. The side characters, including the stereotypical Russians who are besotted with literature. I visited Russia quite a few times back when it was the Soviet Union. And that was everywhere. That is not wrong. That is not a mischaracterization. I don't know about Putin's Russia, but the Russia that I visited, the Russians on every rung of society loved their literature. Or if they didn't, I had a friend who worked in the Politburo, so I was able to mix in circles that had their own apartments, circles that had their own cars, which you don't think anything of, but to be somebody to have those things at the times that I was there. If I was at a party, always difficult to do because, oh my God, do the Russians of that era love to smoke? Oh my God, oh my God. Just you couldn't see from one end of the room to the other. It was as bad as an Irish pub in the olden days. But if I went to one of those things, either everybody could quote something by heart, whether it's Pushkin or Anna Akhmatova or whoever it was. Either everybody could do that, or there'd be one or two people who couldn't, and they would be genuinely red-faced apologetic about the fact that they couldn't. They would be genuinely embarrassed by that fact, including even if they were a minister who had, a significant amount of power. Nope. They can be arrogant in every other element of their life, but not that. Not literature. If they didn't know literature, Russian literature, some of the greatest literature in the history of the world, they felt embarrassed by it. I don't know if that's still true. I don't know if all of those Russians, that particular kind of Russian, has either been killed off or gone silent. But the combination of literary dreaminess, opportunistic looking for the main chance, and also that mordant gray humor, that mordant outlook on the world that you get if you impose autocratic czarist rule on a freedom-loving people for 2 centuries, or 8 centuries. If you do that, you're not going to change the character of the people. You're not going to make them servile. But you are going to inculcate in them a need to have a really grim worldview, because it's not going to get them anywhere not to, unless they immigrate. That is all through here. What a Russian book this is. Oh my. What, and not just the bears and, Siberia and like Baikal and whatnot, but all the rest. The attitude behind it all is so Russian. Arkady Renko is such a Russian character. It's amazing. And the book moves perfectly to a thrilling ending. There are 2 aspects. When you're 2/3 of the way through the book, there are 2 aspects that if you're paying any kind of attention to the book or to the world, you're going to realize 2 things. That the climax of the book is going to involve 2 elements. One is Kuznetsov's semi-stated desire to maybe challenge the supremacy of Vladimir Putin. It's no joking matter here. We know what happens to people who do that. They die. He kills them. This best friend of a former president of the United States, this guy that he loves more than anybody, and who is paying and suborning the votes of 2/3, maybe 4/5 of the House of Representatives here in my country. If you oppose him, he will kill you. And when you're 2/3 of the way through this book, you're approaching the climax, you know that's true. You know that's the case. And you're maybe by that point not so much hoping Kuznetsov will live. What you're hoping at that point is that he won't take Tatiana with him, that she will manage to survive. You know that that's going to be one element at the end of this book. That this guy can't just keep opposing Putin. And the other element is Lake Baikal itself, which we encounter when it's iced over, but if you have an iced over lake, it's fun. My hosts are one thing when I was there, and they said, just shimmy out, we're right here, and the ice is 4 feet thick, you're not going to fall through. It's one thing if they want to do that with a skittery New Englander, but it's a different thing if you're a novel. If you're a novel, the ice is always thin. So you know the climax here is going to involve the ice somehow. And both those things turn out to be true at the end of the book, and they're both done wonderfully. The only question I had when I read this, when I finished it, I get to the extremely downbeat final page. Oh my God. The extremely downbeat ending. When I got to the end of the book, I loved it. I'm very grateful for the suggestion. But the main question that I had, it didn't really strike me the first time I read it, is what I would call this. What would I call this? I guess not so much a mystery. There absolutely is not a mystery in this book. At all. I mean, I didn't even spot a minor one. I mean, even at the very beginning, we're told right away how the bears got out. But I don't think you would call this a mystery, so I'm not sure if this belongs in March Mystery Madness. I may have broken the rules right away at the first week of March Mystery Madness. Sorry, the baby is going insane here. I think because I'm talking but not paying attention to her. You'd think she'd be used to that by now. What was I saying? Oh, right. No murder mystery. So this is probably more of a police procedural. With Till Death by Ed McBain, there was a mystery. Right? Who sent the Black Widow spider? Who is behind the disruptions at the wedding? Here, I didn't detect a mystery of any kind. Not maybe I was just missing what the author intended. But actually, I was okay with that, because that cleared the brush away so that I could just appreciate the book, whatever it is. An Arkady Renko novel. As far as I'm concerned, that can stand on its own. That's just a description of a book. It's an Arkady Renko novel. So this was a very good suggestion. It recovered a little of the momentum that I lost from reading Till Death by Ed McBain. And I worried when I didn't like Till Death, because he's Ollie's favorite author, and I love Ollie's channel, same as anybody else does. So I put out the mention in that video, did maybe Evan Hunter, the author who took the pen name of Ed McBain, did he maybe write another series that maybe got to number 9? And I think he did. I wasn't completely clear. I'll have to research it a little myself. I get the impression that he did get to number 9 on a couple of other regular series, but that they weren't mystery series. Pete, what is the matter? Why are you going nuts? Oh my God. What are you doing? Oh my God, baby, what are you doing? Oh my God. Oh my God. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, right. I'm not gonna hunt around for an Evan Hunter novel. One will come up in the course of the month, I'm sure, if there is another one that qualifies. But I've now recovered the momentum that I lost from Ed McBain and a couple of other authors, because rereading Siberian Dilemma was so great. I didn't read it on the iPad. I read it on the Kindle. This big Kindle here that has this this border here that is really for anchoring the stylus that goes along with this machine. But I found that if I just forget that I have the stylus, and just forget that I have the case, forget that I have anything except that this is a big Kindle, then it has a border. Just exactly like the Kindle Oasis. The poor forlorn Kindle Oasis has a big border. So you have something to hold on to where you're not accidentally turning pages. And the page turn button is right there. It's right where you can touch it. It's right where you're going to turn pages. So it's that's a power button rather. The page button here, you rest it and just turn the pages with your thumb. It's perfectly, and it's a full page. It's not little like a Kindle. You're reading a full page of a book. I'm a little bit guilty about falling to this thing quite so regularly so recently, because Amazon, the Kindle designers, clearly want me to be using more of this device than I am. They clearly want me to be drawing on it, writing on it, and I'm not doing that. And I have no real interest of doing that. Maybe I'll branch out and see how useful it is. I'll be getting a whole lot of tech advice in just a few days. Right now, this thing is supposed to be able to connect to the internet, supposed to be able to connect to my emails and whatnot. If this thing could connect to my emails, and if it could connect to Google Docs in a way that I could use the writing function to write on a document, I would probably use those things. I would probably find a way to have the stylus nearby so that I could use it. I'll figure it out. But I didn't read it on the iPad because this thing is not backlit. It's just much more comfortable to do. It's much more comfortable to read on. So anyway, that is March Mystery Madness for today. So we're 1 week into March Mystery Madness. I'm leaving the hashtag on all of these videos so that you can check out all of my co-hosts. I'm not really sure how many March Mystery Madness videos there have been, other than my own, but a few. And all that's left for me to do is to spin the wheel for tonight. I had a great reread last night. And it was a reread of something that I read just a few years ago. So I'm thinking tonight, maybe push my luck and try something totally new. Something that, like Till Death by Ed McBain, something that I've never read before, and just see what I make of it. Maybe even something that's not only new to me, like Till Death, but from a series that's new to me. The 87 Precinct, I'd read a couple of those books. Maybe try just something completely new. Wouldn't that be fascinating? I'll have to look into it and see. I'll decide on something and you'll know. I'll make another March Mystery Madness and tell you all about it. So I will wrap this up for now, and I will see you then. Thank you, BookTube.